In the 1980s, heavy +sign double soldier, heavy +sign space, heavy +sign female Qiang, heavy +sign face slapping, heavy +sign weapon powerhouse, heavy +sign turn the table. Duyi is a top assassin trained by the Blood Demon organization, ranking first in the world with 0 failure rate. She fights, develops weapons, shoots, proficient in everything. After earning 2 billion yuan, she wants to live an ordinary life in seclusion, get married, and have children. The organization has only one requirement. Hand over all the weapon blueprints and arsenal, and let her go. She fulfilled the organization's obligations but issued a pursuit order. After running away for 2 years, she died at the hands of her former teammates. However, the body and soul have not yet dissipated. Duyi's soul pierced through a soldier with the same name and surname in 801. Freedom, new identity, soldier, kill 3 birds with 1 stone. The only downside is I was originally a sick seedling, plagued by serious illnesses and minor illnesses since childhood. Such a sick person insisted on joining the military, so his original identity became a joke in the military district courtyard. And the doll I ordered from a young age has just become disabled. She, Duyi, should not pretend to be a sick seedling, so she used her new identity to win one championship after another, and her reputation spread throughout the country. Representing the country to participate in competitive competitions abroad, China, which was originally unable to enter the top 10, made a comeback and won the championship. If the weapon is not in her hands, she will develop it herself. Captain Du, how can your gun shoot up to 300 meters away? Duyi. The wind is strong, bring it over. Captain Du, how could your grenade blow up such a big hole? Duyi. My ground is too soft. The versatile Duyipa slapped the person who once laughed at her. Finally, he became a recognized military king. By the way, he captured his heart. Chapter 1. Body dies but soul remains. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Duyi, goodbye. As the words fell, 10 miniature bombs were simultaneously thrown into the tin hut. A few figures quickly rushed onto the car, and the black off-road roared and sped away. 3 seconds later, several explosions rang out inside the cabin. When black smoke and dust fall, the tin hut disappeared, leaving only a large pit with blackened edges in place. The pit is filled with ashes from the high-temperature combustion of the iron shack and its contents. At the same time, in another time and space. Inside the small wooden cabin, the woman with her whole body bound by iron chains suddenly opened her eyes. Her eyes were clear and cold, and when she opened them, she scanned the surrounding environment in disbelief. She was stunned when she saw the wooden house with only one small bed. Didn't Dusan and the others just want to blow her up? Why does the environment change as soon as you open your eyes? Are you no longer in pain? She lowered her head and looked up, her pupils suddenly expanding. Green military uniform, intact body. Du frowned tightly, and everything in front of her left her puzzled. Isn't she wearing a vest and jeans soaked in blood? Isn't it that all the tendons in the hands and feet have been cut off, and both arms and legs have been smashed into comminuted fractures? I don't have any good flesh all over my body, why now? Before she could think it over, her brain suddenly swelled and hurt. Countless images flashed through her mind at the same time. Just like before a person dies, the memories of their entire life are compressed into a flashback in an instant. Her body and soul are still lingering. The soul pierced through the body of a third-generation soldier in 1986. She, Duyi, surprisingly did not die. There is nothing extraordinary in the world, and her personal space is also a special existence. So she can accept this result very well. The freedom and new identity that I have long dreamed of, as well as my wish to become a soldier, are all at this moment implemented. The pain of peeling and pulling bones that I have suffered in the past 2 days can be considered as a corresponding reward. The only thing that left her unsatisfied was that the original owner of this body was foolish and incompetent, and also had the same name and surname as her. She is now bound by iron chains all over her body, thanks to the original owner's disobedience to military orders. She took risks alone to catch drug dealers and was instead taken hostage by drug dealer KO back to her hideout. The original owner has been a sickly seedling since childhood, plagued by serious and minor illnesses. After being caught by drug traffickers and returned to the hideout, the original owner was injected with an excessive amount of anesthetic and died of shock due to the inability of the heart to withstand it. At the same time, I wore it myself. Duyi. She, Duyi, as the world's #1 and undefeated top killer, how could she be a sickly seedling? Moreover, from the fragments of the original owner's memory just now, it can be seen that her wish is to become an excellent soldier. 5 years ago, the original owner braved illness and joined the army despite family opposition. To encourage herself, she changed her name from Duyi to Duyi, symbolizing striving to be the first in everything. After serving in the military for 5 years, the original owner only held the position of squad leader, thus becoming a joke in the entire military district courtyard. What a fool! No matter how unhappy she is, she can't think too much now. The situation is very dangerous. After injecting anesthesia, the drug dealer tied the original owner inside the wooden house. Those drug dealers will come in at any time, and we don't know what's going on outside yet. She needs to get out first. Duyi lowered his head and looked at the sturdy and thick iron chains tied around his body, which was very intimidating, but in reality, they were tied haphazardly without any organization. With a slight flick of her thumb and middle finger, the iron chain loosened in a few places. A few more tugs, her arm had already come out of the iron chain. 3 seconds later, she untied the iron chain all over her body and stood up to move her hands and feet. When her hands were folded, she felt something was wrong. She raised her right hand and saw a silver ring on her ring finger. Isn't this the space ring that has already been handed over to the organization? Why is it in her hands? At the age of 15, she accidentally got a silver ring while on a mission. Later, she was injured and blood entered, and she was also brought in. It was only then that she narrowly escaped death. From now on, no matter how dangerous the task is, there is nothing that cannot be completed by her. In critical moments, she can directly enter the ring and have many lives to use. Inside the ring is a portable space, the size of a football field. As long as she thinks about the appearance of the space and says it, she can enter any corner of the space. When she touches something, she thinks to herself to put it into space, and the thing will disappear into the space in place. During the years with the ring, space was her residence and mission supply station. She built a villa inside, connected water and electricity, and built a large garden behind the villa. When she wasn't doing tasks, she would drink tea inside, and no one could find her. In front of the villa is her parking lot, where 30 limited edition sports cars from around the world are displayed one by one in the outdoor parking lot. On the right side of the villa are her 3 medicine depots and 20.6 parallel weapon depots. 16 of the weapons were bought by her, and 10 were self-developed by her. The Blood Demon organization not only cultivates them on how to kill, but also teaches them all the skills that can be used in carrying out missions, such as weapon development. She is the most talented person in developing weapons in the organization, and 80% of the weapons used in the organization are manufactured by her. Once she has space, she puts all the weapons she has developed in the space for easy access and use. She also has a hobby of collecting weapons. Whenever she earns money, she will use it to buy the best weapons and store them in the space. Over time, the weapons inside pile up like a mountain. She simply built an arsenal and classified all weapons for placement. When she saved up 2 billion yuan and wanted to live a normal life in seclusion, the organization made a request to leave the space ring as an antidote and freedom for her. Blood demons like to use poison to control assassins, and they need to take antidotes every once in a while, otherwise they will be poisoned and die. She fulfilled her promise to hand over the ring to the organization, but was issued a pursuit order by the organization. After running away for 2 years, her body became increasingly weak due to long-term self-medication detoxification, and the toxins in her body were not completely cleared. 2 days ago, her former teammates tracked her down and subjected her to 2 days of inhumane torture before killing her. It was because she was too proud in the organization before, looked down upon those who were weaker than her, and did not make friends, that her teammates had to torture her before killing her before giving up. And now that she has arrived at 80, the space ring has returned to her hands. With space, she felt much more at ease. At least there is no concern for life now. Chapter 2. Killing Sun Tzu and Killing Grandfather Again. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Having learned from her past experiences, she will never let anyone know about the existence of space again. In her past life, she had no reservations about the blood demon organization that raised her, and only then did she end up being tortured to death. She saw through people's hearts. Du touched the ring and his eyes became fierce. She has been reborn. No one can stop her from living a new life. At present, she needs to solve the first stumbling block. The drug dealers outside the wooden house. According to the original owner's memory, this area is the main stronghold of drug traffickers. But when the original owner was caught, he was already unconscious and had no idea about the situation here. Duyi took out the micro-drone from the space, released it through the window gap, and then put on LCD glasses, manipulating the drone to fly into the air to check the situation. This is her self-developed drone, which operates within 3 kilometers through the chip induction of the remote control device and does not require network signals. The drone flew a big circle nearby, and Duyi had a panoramic view of the situation here. She guessed that this was the stronghold of drug traffickers. Because this forest is clearly divided into 2 areas, one is a residential area with women and children, and the other is a gathering place for drug traffickers. Usually, family members of drug traffickers can only be seen in the main camp. There are gun patrols everywhere in the drug dealer gathering place. Duyi saw that they were all holding submachine guns with a range of no more than 200 meters. She looked at the number of people patrolling again, totaling more than 20 people. At the center of the gathering place is a 2-story small building made of bamboo. This small building should be the residence of the drug dealer leader. And her location is on the edge of the drug trafficking dens. Going further back is the kilometer cliff. This drug dealer leader is really good at picking places and has chosen a natural barrier. The front is the exit, he just needs to set up sentries on both sides. This hideout is truly a typical example of being easy to defend but difficult to attack. Duyi withdrew the drone, took off his military uniform, took out a set of all-black tight-fitting clothes from the space, put on a black headband, and only showed a pair of eyes. This is her usual equipment for action. Behind was a cliff, and she had to cross out from the drug dealer gathering place. Coincidentally, I just arrived at 80. Warm up with these drug dealers. She put the equipment into the space and took out a D.Country MP5 submachine gun, which comes with a silencer and is suitable for close combat. Bang! She kicked the door of the wooden house open. What are you doing now that you're going to start working? 2 drug dealers not far away were startled by the sound, and they turned their heads together to see such a scene. Under the sunrise, a clear figure wearing a black tight-fitting suit walked out of the dark wooden house, particularly eye-catching in the rising sun. Duyi quickly picked up his gun and ran towards the 3 drug dealers. As soon as they realized they were about to raise their guns, Duyi double-headed them. Duyi followed the layout seen in the drone just now, searched for drug dealers, and began performing. Beautiful gun-raising posture, smooth and agile gun-changing movements, with 1 shot and 1 head popping. She doesn't need to change ammunition at all, just change the gun. The gunshot caught the attention of other sentries, and more than 20 people ran towards the source of the sound. Duyi also ran towards them and solved them one by one according to their distance. 2 minutes later, a drug dealer fell from the place where she had run. The drug dealer leader and several confidants were in a meeting, and upon hearing the sound of gunshots, they immediately alertly picked up their weapons and found a hidden place to investigate the situation outside. When Du was found alone, the leader walked out with a sniper rifle in hand. He led 3 confidants to shoot Duyi on the bamboo tower. However, Du ran too fast, and even if he saw someone, he couldn't aim. As a top killer in the world, Duyi naturally does not allow herself to have fatal weaknesses. Her running pace was deliberately practiced. There is no pattern, as long as the speed is fast enough, the opponent cannot hit. But the original owner's body was too weak, and she is now gasping for breath. However, she did not slow down. With the shooting density of the drug dealer leader and a few others, if she slowed down, she was likely to lose her life. She gritted her teeth and ran to the bottom of the bamboo tower, when all the other sentries had been taken care of by Duyi. She can finally rest for 2 seconds, this is a blind spot. The drug dealer leader and a few others couldn't see Duyi and were worried that she would come from behind, so they split into 2 waves, with 2 people in the front and 2 people in the back. Duyi took out a tear gas bomb from the space and threw it onto the 2nd floor. She took the opportunity to climb up the pillars of the bamboo tower and sprinted upwards. Arrived behind the leader and his confidants. Du clapped his hands and signaled for the 2 to turn their heads. Pop pop, the next second, a pistol appeared out of nowhere in her hand. Bang, she shot her confidant who had just turned around, but after evading the leader's shot, she fired 2 more shots in a row, hitting the leader's knee. Ah! The leader let out a painful shout and knelt down to the ground with a thud. She changed into a submachine gun and smashed the 2 confidants who came running from behind the house into sieves. The drug dealer leader knelt on the ground begging for mercy. He spoke the obscure and difficult to understand local dialect. I am the head of the Ganba family. Don't kill me, I'll give you gold. Damn it. Du's lips curved into a smile. She had a mission before, which was to take the head of the Ganba family leader. At that time, the person who placed the order was their arch-rival, the ancient Arthur family. Killing someone else's grandson and now having to kill her grandfather, she has no grudges against the Dry family. Where is the gold? She asked in a cold, rustic tone. The drug dealer leader was very surprised when he heard Duyi speaking the local dialect. Only local people could speak their words, and outsiders generally couldn't learn them. Just now, when he saw Duyi so powerful, he thought he was the international assassin he was looking for at home, specifically to kill him. He honestly replied, "It's under the crocodile tank in the house." He saw that Duyi only injured his knee and did not directly pop his head like others. I hope Duyi can spare him in the end. Du grabbed the leader's collar and dragged him into the room. As soon as he entered, he saw a large glass jar on his right side, inside which lay a drowsy golden crocodile. The black large iron box is padded with a glass jar. Gold should be inside. She kicked the glass jar down with one kick, and the crocodile inside was also awakened. He opened his small round eyes and was still confused. Duyi ordered the drug dealer, "Turn your head." The drug dealer endured the pain and turned back. She placed her hand on the crocodile's tail, and the crocodile disappeared in place. It's a pity to kill such a big and beautiful golden crocodile. Why not put it in the space as a pet? She raised her gun and fired a few shots at the large lock on the black iron box with a loud bang, and the lock fell to the ground. Du lifted the lid of the black iron box, and inside was a box full of golden cakes. She glanced at the drug dealer leader and placed her hand on the iron box, which immediately disappeared out of thin air. She turned around, grabbed the back collar of the drug dealer's head, and dragged him outside, leaving 2 long bloodstains on the ground. Even so, the drug dealer leader didn't even snort. Du glanced at him and felt that he was truly the head of the Dry family. The drug dealer leader was dragged to the door and asked Duyi, "Madam, will you let me go?" Duyi sneered. "I won't take you away." As soon as a smile appeared on the head of the drug dealer's face, Duyi said, I will hand you over to the soldiers of China. Will they let you go? I don't know about you. Drug dealer leader. As soon as Duyi finished speaking, he heard several cars coming over. She squinted her eyes and saw that a drug dealer's accomplice had arrived. Chapter 3. Duyi will not die, will he? You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Duyi peered through the leaves and observed the approaching vehicles. At the front are two black off-road vehicles, with a red pickup truck in the middle. There are two medium-sized wooden crates in the back compartment of the pickup truck, and behind them are two broken jeeps whose body paint is almost peeling off. She glanced at the two wooden boxes, which were boxes containing weapons. As if to verify a hypothesis, her gaze scanned the people inside the car again. All 5 cars were full, and everyone was holding a gun. These people had a smug expression on their faces, and she guessed that they should have just returned from a successful transaction. Earlier, when she saw that there were only over 30 people in this headquarters, she thought of a group of people who had gone out to collect medicine or trade. She had originally planned to handle the people on site and leave, while the others were handed over to the Chinese military for arrest. I didn't expect to encounter it myself. It seems like she's going to take all the credit today. The drug dealer leader heard the familiar sound of cars and looked down, but dared not shout. At this moment, his temple was being pressed against by a submachine gun. You can't shoot them with just one gun. As long as you let me go, I won't let them make things difficult for you. The drug dealer leader looked up and said. Duyi doesn't believe such nonsense. A man's mouth is a deceitful ghost, especially the mouth of a drug dealer. She quickly stabbed the back neck of the drug dealer's head with her left hand. Bang! The drug dealer collapsed straight to the ground and fainted. Who told you I only have one gun? As soon as she finished speaking, she took out a machine gun from the space and placed it on a bamboo board, taking out a bulletproof glass shield to block the machine gun in front of her. With this shield, enemy bullets would never get close to her. She has just come back to life, careful sailing on a 1,000-year-old ship. As he looked at the approaching convoy, Du's lips slightly curled up and he said, True brothers must die on the same day, month, and year. She quickly lay down, adjusted her shooting angle, and began shooting at the people in the 5 cars. The bullets used in this gun were self-developed by her, and the casing is made of refined steel material, which can penetrate the body of the car. If it weren't for looking at the 2 boxes on the pickup truck, she would have carried the rocket launcher directly, and one shell would have solved everyone. The laughing drug dealers in the car were shocked to see their talking companions suddenly having their heads blown out. They quickly hid in a hidden position in the car and raised their weapons to shoot wildly at the source of the gunfire. More than 20 guns were simultaneously firing at Duyi's side, and the bullets in the air all sparks and stars. Suddenly, various gunshots rang out one after another. Pop 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 pop. Da. Bang bang bang, shio. The dense gunfire spread in all directions, indicating the direction of the attacking Chinese soldiers. However, the drug traffickers had been shooting for more than 30 seconds, and the bamboo tower had been smashed to pieces, and no one came out from across the street. On the other hand, on my side, about 10 people have already been exposed. As the car drove closer and closer, the drug dealers noticed something was wrong and immediately shouted, passing messages to their companions in the other cars. There are corpses everywhere on the ground. Bullets can penetrate cars. There aren't many people on the other side, get off the car and disperse. Yila. 5 cars urgently stopped in place. The still alive people quickly jumped out of the car, scattered into the forest, and slowly gathered towards the bamboo tower. Duyi took out his sniper rifle again and began sniping at the scattered drug dealers one by one. 1, 2, 3, 4. She counted the number of people while shooting. When she was observing the cars earlier, she had already determined the number of people, 5 cars and 30.6 people. 13 people died in the car. There are still 20.3 people. 3 minutes later. 20. There are 3 more people. She carefully observed the forest, listening to the movements around her. A bullet hit the glass shield. Duyi followed the trajectory of the bullet and quickly locked onto the big tree in the 3 o'clock direction ahead. She adjusted the magnification of the sniper to 30.2 times, and when she saw a protruding trunk, she increased the magnification again. The drug dealer nestled in the tree now widened his eyes in fear. The shot he had just fired was 100% accurate. Why was the bullet bounced out? He was puzzled and was about to be shot through the head by a bullet. The drug dealer still had a frightened expression on his face when his head was exposed. 21. Du continued to count expressionlessly. There are only 2 people left. She doesn't have time to waste here. Thinking of this, Duyi immediately took out her thermal imaging glasses from the space and put them on. She quickly and regularly observed the forest, and in the 5 o'clock and 11 o'clock directions, she saw the last 2 people hiding. Putting away her thermal imaging glasses, she picked up the sniper and increased the magnification, locking in the drug dealer in the 5 o'clock direction. When Du fired a shot, the drug dealer also rolled down the small slope. At this moment, the last drug dealer had already shaken into a sieve. He looked at Duyi as if he had a penetrating eye and pointed his gun directly at him. Duyi quickly resolved the last person and sent him to Yongdeng Bliss, hoping to be a good person in the next life. 20.3 All resolved. She collected all the firearms into the space, then jumped off the bamboo tower and ran to the red pickup truck, flipping over and getting on. Upon opening the wooden box, it was indeed filled with various firearms and ammunition, all of which were from D country. But compared to the weapons in her space, there is really no comparison between Big Brother and Small Brother. Let's take these firearms back together as confiscated weapons and drug traffickers. She covered the wooden box, drove the red pickup truck under the bamboo tower, and then ran upstairs to change back into her military uniform. When she came out again, she became a female soldier of the Hua Kingdom. Duyi dragged the fainting drug dealer leader downstairs and placed him in the back carriage. She was going back with people and things now, and it was said that both drug dealers died in a fight. When she saw the injured drug dealer leader, she picked it up. Whether the troops believe it or not, the scene looks like this. The people on those 5 cars and the people on the bamboo tower were in opposition and died. At first glance, it seemed like 2 groups of people were fighting fiercely, and in the end, both were defeated and injured. As for what the drug dealer leader will say when he wakes up, it has nothing to do with her. He didn't see his own face again, and the drug dealer leader must have known about it after the original owner was caught. How could a Chinese female soldier who couldn't even defeat 2 drug dealers kill more than 60 people? Even if the drug dealer said it was a woman who killed his accomplice, the army would never think of her, because the original owner's weak chicken-like demeanor is deeply ingrained in the hearts of the soldiers. She just told the troops directly that she killed over 60 drug dealers, and no one would believe it. She clapped her hands, ready to sit in the driver's seat and drive away when suddenly she heard some movement. Do drug dealers have any accomplices? She turned to the side of the car, hit first, and then turned her head to look around. In the forest, more than 150 Chinese soldiers, led by the battalion commander, are slowly surrounding the drug trafficking base. Duyi won't die, will he? Captain Li behind Captain Zhou asked with concern. Duyi is a soldier of their company. If he sacrifices himself in this mission, then Commander Du will not be able to kill him. Captain Zhou's face looked a bit ugly. He didn't take Captain Li's words and clenched the gun in his hand. It's useless to say anything now. Finding someone first is the right thing to do. Chapter 4. Wang Di picking up leaks. You are listening at novel full.audio. De Co Lois Ara Trong Quatrin Lay Text. Chapter 5. The Fastest Task End. You are listening at novel full.audio. After hearing Duyi's words, Lianchangli was crazy and roast about what bad luck it was. But soon it was realized that Duyi was a member of their company, and Duyi's credit was their company's glory. He, as the company commander, didn't hurry to take away the military merit that was delivered to him. So he immediately put on a smiling face and said to Captain Zhou, "Captain, from the results, it seems that this drug dealer leader was caught by Duyi, there is no doubt about it." The other soldiers all turned their heads to look at Captain Zhou, to see how he made his decision. "This is not catching, this is clearly picking. And what I picked up was a personal second-class merit. What else can Captain Zhou say? Their mission this time is to destroy the drug trafficking dens, capture the drug trafficking leaders, and cut off several drug production lines. Now the drug dealer leader is in the car, they haven't even started their operation, and the task has been completed. This is the fastest task he has ever completed. Only Duyi in our team had contact with the drug trafficker leader. Even if she caught him, when he returns to the army, Duyi will write a detailed report to me." Duyi quickly raised his hand and saluted, taking the credit. "Got it," she shouted loudly. "This is just an appetizer." The other soldiers saw that Captain Zhou had made a decision and put away their expressions on their faces. Orders from the military commander must be obeyed. Captain Zhou turned his head and looked around the surroundings. He waved his hand and said, "Lieutenant Li, please arrange for someone to take away the drug dealer leader and those 2 boxes of firearms. After we go out, we will notify the local police station to come and finish. Team up." The soldiers who were watching were still loose and scattered a second ago. As soon as they heard the end of the line, they immediately straightened their backs and stood in 3 rows with small steps. Duyi also joined the team. Lieutenant Li stood beside Captain Zhou and shouted loudly, "Ma Qizhou, Chen Jianhui, Zhang Wei, Qian Jun, and Shang Xiao are out." His words fell, and the 5 people who were called out took a step forward at the same time. Li Lian issued a long command. Ma Qizhou carries his back, and the remaining 4 carry guns. Received, 5 people shouted in unison. Then immediately run towards the red pickup truck and flip into the carriage. The person and the wooden box were immediately lifted down. Captain Zhou and Captain Li also turned around and led the team towards the campsite. There are a total of 80 people on this mission, and 30 people are staying at the camp. The campsite is on another mountain. They just arrived here last night and found out that the drug dealer's hideout is on the adjacent mountain. They set up camp nearby and are ready to take action at any time. Shang Xiao, who was walking at the back of the team, lifted a corner of the wooden box and looked inside. He was surprised and said to Zhang Wei, who was carrying the box together, "Hey, look, this is a gun from D country, right?" Zhang Wei pursed his lips and said, "Are you mistaken? Why do border drug traffickers buy such good firearms? Do you know how expensive it is for D domestic products?" Shang Xiao is a bit angry. "Who do you look down on? I haven't been in the military for a year or 2, don't I even have this kind of military quality?" Zhang Wei's face turned red with anger when he saw his comrade in arms. He opened a corner of the wooden box, glanced casually inside, and then opened some more, his face full of disbelief. He took a closer look and found that they were all D domestic products. "This box is full of good things, rifles, submachine guns. I've really found treasure," he said excitedly to Shang Xiao. Shang Xiao held her head high and looked proud, "I'll just say it's a D domestic product." Chen Jianhui and Qian Jun in front listened and opened the lid to look inside. "It's really a D country product." The 2 exchanged a glance, both seeing shock in their respective eyes. These 2 wooden boxes start at 300,000 yuan, and a rifle costs over 4,000 yuan, let alone a machine gun inside. Machine guns are 5 times the price of rifles. Be good. Chen Jianhui swallowed his saliva. Duyi really made contributions this time. The drug dealer leader, along with these 2 boxes of firearms, can give her a good face in the army. TSK Duyi, you're lucky to be a dog. Xian Jun also smacked his lips twice and said. On the way back to the camp, people around Duyi were all looking at her. Their target of ridicule, Duyi, became the protagonist today and received personal second-class merit in vain. This is truly a blessing in disguise. After being caught by drug traffickers, it was originally a thrilling event, but ended up being caught in a fierce battle between two drug traffickers. In the end, they encountered an undead drug trafficker leader and directly picked it up. If other members of the army knew about this, they would envy me to death. This kind of good thing is something that I will never encounter in my life as a soldier. Anyway, everyone in the team feels that Duyi has benefited from misfortune. They think it's good that someone like Duyi, who is a grass bag, can't even hit the 9 rings when shooting, and can kill enemies. I don't know if she was scared during the drug trafficking competition. Her comrade behind her walked and asked, Duyi, when the two drug dealers were fighting, did you just hide and watch? Duyi replied without emotion, I was still unconscious at that time. She knows what these people are thinking, it's not important. In terms of military strength and military achievements, it represents everything. In terms of her abilities, none of these will be lacking. Her comrade in front of her, upon hearing Duyi's words, turned around and asked with a smile, what a coincidence. The drug dealers on both sides have died, and you have also woken up. Duyi Xiao said, every coincidence is a book. Otherwise, how could I effortlessly capture the drug dealer leader? Next time, you can also go deep into the enemy camp. Maybe this can also be considered a way to complete the task. The comrade in front choked on her words and said angrily, Hee, you're really lucky. It is true that Duyi was kidnapped by drug traffickers into a hideout, and the danger is also true. If this were to be placed on them, could they escape? To put it another way, their lives would be ruined. Just now there was a large area of corpses on the ground, at least more than 50 people. Who can kill 50 people with guns in one go? Isn't this a fantasy? Those people are all drug dealers, they are fugitives. Duyi's words made everyone stop asking too many questions. Whether it was picked up or caught by oneself, the result is here. They are soldiers, not gossip women. 20 minutes later, the team climbed over the mountains and finally arrived at the campsite. As soon as Captain Zhou arrived at the camp, he shouted to the people who were left behind, pull out the camp and return to the troops. The left-behind person, although unaware of the reason, immediately dismantled the tent, packed things and put them on the car. The soldiers of the team also went up to help. Captain Li picked up a pot of water from the supply area and handed it to Duyi with a smile on his face. Duyi, please rest and we'll be busy. It's all up to you to complete the task so quickly this time. Duyi didn't hesitate to take the kettle and said, okay, platoon leader. She was happy and relaxed, and what she did for the army today was enough to qualify for a rest. Chapter 6. Shocking Comrades. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. De Co Lois Ara Trong Quatrin Lay Text. Chapter 7. Heard about the mayor's daughter being kidnapped. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. The drug dealer leader is on the first military card, and the people in Duyi's car have not received any orders to get off. They just need to stay in the car. After handing over the drug dealer leader, the car quickly restarted and headed towards the train station. They came to the border to carry out missions, which were brought by military trains, which was the most commonly used long-distance transportation method for troops in the 1980s. It takes 2 days from here to Kyoto. These 2 days are equivalent to a vacation and rest. After completing the task, on the way back, the officer usually turns a blind eye and plays wildly. It can be considered as a chance for military personnel who need to train crazily to relax. And this time they came out and completed the task assigned to them within less than a day of reaching the border, which made Captain Zhou and company leader Li feel even better. At the train station, the military train would take more than 2 hours to arrive. Captain Zhou waved his hand and gave everyone 1.5 hours of free time to move around. I finally came to Yunnan province and went to see if there were any special products to buy and bring back. As soon as he spoke, the 80 people in the queue were stunned for a moment, not including Duyi with a cold face. After everyone reacted and cheered loudly, they neatly stacked their marching bags on the open ground and then left the station in groups of 3. Duyi also put down her bag and saw a half-high platform not far away. She walked over with her bag in hand, ready to take a nap. Duyi. Duyi. At this moment, Shang Xiao stumbled over and whispered to her. Upon hearing this, Du turned his head slightly and glanced at Shang Xiao. "What's up?" she asked in a cold tone. Shang Xiao's hot face pressed against his cold buttocks, and he said happily, "Aren't you going out for a stroll? This is our first time in Yunnan province." "I won't go." Du didn't even think about replying. 8 or 6 years behind her previous life by nearly 40 years, can things have space to be good? Importantly, she has no interest in shopping. Go ahead, go ahead. This time, because you completed the task ahead of schedule, we will treat you to delicious food. Shang Xiao still shamelessly said. He stood sideways, his eyes occasionally glancing towards Ma Qizhou not far away. Du glanced at his expression and knew that it was Ma Qizhou who instructed him to call him. "I'll say it one last time, I won't go." Shang Xiao had a constipated expression on her face. He leaned forward and whispered, "Ma Qizhou made a bet with me that I wouldn't be able to call you out. You can come with us and treat me as if I owe you one favor." This is clearly the method of provocation. Duyi looked at Shang Xiao, who was laughing foolishly, and he didn't know if he had been sold. She couldn't help but think that she had been alone in her past life and had no friends in the organization, which was why she was mercilessly tortured into that kind of situation in the end. Now that you become a soldier, it's time to make friends. And according to her original memory, this Shang Xiao is the one who often maintains her. It's just that. "Okay, I'll go," Duyi said in a less cold tone. Upon hearing this, Shang Xiao revealed a smile similar to that of Xiong'er. Since she was going out, Duyi turned around and walked straight ahead. She crossed over Ma Qizhou standing under the eaves, put her backpack on the pile of backpacks, and took out her wallet from inside. "Let's go." Du shook his head and said to Shang Xiaodao, then walked out first. "Okay." Shang Zia Piao followed, and Ma Qizhou walked quickly with a faint smile on his lips. Duyi's steps were neither hurried nor slow, always distancing himself from them by 2 steps. Even if she wants to make friends, she doesn't get used to getting too close to others. Ma Qizhou looked at the tall and thin figure in front with a seemingly absent gaze, and the curve of his mouth couldn't be suppressed. After leaving the train station, there are various snacks outside, which are meant to fill the stomachs of passing passengers. Although they are all local specialties, the taste can be imagined. Shang Xiao looked at the colorful snacks that he had never seen before, and his eyes were dazzled. He quickened his pace to follow Duyi and asked with a smile, "Duyi, what would you like to eat? I heard that there are flour cakes and rice noodles here in Yunnan province. Look, that colorful rice cake is also good." He simply felt that a frail comrade in arms like Duyi should take care of him more. Every time he sees Duyi being laughed at, he can't help but come forward and make a few theoretical remarks. As a back comrade, how can he look down on people? Du shook her head. She was very picky about what she ate, and food like this that appeared to be mass-produced was definitely not delicious. "You eat, I'll take a look." Ma Qizhou seemed to understand her thoughts and said, "When I first came over, I saw a lot of people on the street turning right, and those shops were all local specialty foods." Shang Xiao, who had just shown a disappointed expression on his face, immediately smiled and said, "Let's go take a look there." Duyi nodded slightly, and she just walked out with the two of them, really not hungry. The three of them quickly walked out of this snack street. Turning right is the main street, which is the real snack street. The fragrance smells different. It looks quite fun here. Shang Xiao looked left and right and said. Ma Qizhou also carefully looked at the shops on both sides of the street, and walked further. He saw a shop with more than 10 people queuing up, named Jinhua Flour Bakery. This looks pretty good, with so many people queuing up. I'll queue up here. Duyi, do you want to eat? Duyi still shook her head, she didn't like desserts. Ma Qizhou originally intended to buy it for Duyi, but when she didn't like it, she didn't want to queue up anymore. Ah! 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 Suddenly, a few meters ahead, there was a commotion, and the crowd ran frantically towards both sides of the road. Monk Ma Qizhou immediately stopped and looked over there. I saw a sturdy man who was 1.9 meters tall, pressing a dagger against the delicate neck of the little girl in his arms, and his left arm tightly wrapped around her neck, preventing her from escaping. The little girl's face turned red from being strangled, as if she was about to catch her breath. She didn't cry, obviously scared. The muscular man constantly threatened the two armed men in front of him, making them retreat. It's hijacking. Monk Ma Qizhou immediately ran forward, and as soldiers, they naturally could not sit idly by in case of trouble. And that sturdy man doesn't look easy to subdue. Duyi's expression stiffened as he walked towards the other side. What about the face of such a tall person holding an 8 or 9-year-old girl hostage? The sturdy man watched with confidence as the two men in front kept retreating. He smiled playfully and said, Captain Ma, if I had known today earlier, why did I have to do it? I heard that the mayor's daughter is enough to exchange my life, right? The middle-aged man who was called the leader of the horse tightly bit his back teeth, and the cold expression in his eyes was about to kill him. Condition. He gritted his teeth and said. The robust man laughed even more proudly. I'm willing to let myself go. Give me a car, 30,000 cash. As soon as he finished speaking, Captain Ma and his companions looked disheveled, clearly indicating that the conditions of a strong man were too excessive. Just as the two of them were showing anger, the sturdy man slowly approached the little girl's neck with a dagger, and with just a scrape, a bloodstain appeared on her delicate white neck. The sturdy man bared his big yellow teeth and slowly said, Captain Ma, my patience is limited. Chapter 8. Solves a social scam. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Captain Ma saw Zhang's big mouth on the other side so arrogant, but he dare not act rashly now. He knew that Zhang Dazue would definitely not kill Mayor Wen's daughter. Being able to be saved unscathed is different from being saved after being stabbed. The man next to Captain Ma kept winking at him. Let him agree to the request to open his mouth first. Promising is not giving things now. I promise you, but from now on, you can't harm a child's hair anymore. If you do anything out of line again, even if you run away later, Mayor Wen won't let you go. You don't want to do that, do you? Said Captain Ma with a sharp frown. He dragged on, just looking for flaws. Zhang Da's left arm tightly grasped the child's neck, while his right hand held a dagger. Seeing the delicate neck of the little girl, he was afraid that it would break with just a twist. Is that right? Zhang looked at group leader Zhang provocatively with his big mouth, and then showed a terrifying smile. His right dagger tilted upwards, leaving another bloodstain. The little girl is already trembling all over, and even if she is saved, there may still be psychological shadows in the future. The onlookers saw this scene and their hearts also tugged at it. The child in the arms of that extremely vicious man looks like a doll, and seeing her trembling all over makes people feel heartbroken. Some people couldn't help but curse loudly. Do you have a mother without a mother? If your mother knew you had done such a thing, she would probably be extremely angry. Accumulate some virtue, don't you have children yourself? You see how beautiful the child looks, you really have to take action. Bah, the already noisy street suddenly became even more noisy. As monk Ma Chizhou approached, he saw 2 red blood marks on the little girl's neck. They looked up and down at the big mouth and the little girl. The 2 people are too close to each other, making it difficult for external forces to act. The dagger was stuck on the little girl's neck, and even with a single shot, there was no guarantee that it would not harm the child. The 2 of them exchanged a glance and felt like they were really a jerk. Duyi also walked over. She scanned and saw the situation clearly. At this time, Zhang Dazhou seemed to be stimulated by the surrounding comments, and he shouted. "Shut up your fucking mouth for me, and say another word, I will stab a blood hole in the little girl." Judging from his tone, it doesn't seem like he's scaring people. Team leader Zhang immediately said, "Zhang Dazue, I said it, I promise you, I will contact the team members now to prepare something for you." Some of the onlookers were very talkative. When they saw Zhang de Mouth accepting someone else's benefits, they knew he wouldn't harm the child. Someone said, "You really have no human nature, your mother shouldn't have given birth to you." Zhang Dazue was born in a violent family. His mother was killed by his father. Seeing such things with his own eyes made him become what he is today. His mother is a rebellious Scales, and the constant mention of these onlookers has brought him to the brink of losing control. He bit his cheek and suddenly raised his dagger, ready to stab the little girl's arm. Duyi saw this scene in the crowd and quickly threw out a hemp needle, which went into the heart of her big mouth. When Zhang's mouth was about to lose control of her emotions, she took out a hemp needle from the space and waited for Zhang's mouth to move before taking action. And the next second she throws the needle. Bang! Gunshots also rang out. On the other end of the street, there is also a sound of police sirens coming from far to near, followed by 2 black luxury cars. After Captain Ma fired, he and his companions immediately went up to rescue the little girl. He didn't hit the vital point of his big mouth, it was on the shoulder where he was holding the dagger, because there were still some things to be interrogated, so he didn't kill. After rescuing the little girl, Captain Ma saw that Zhang's mouth was motionless. He went over to look and found something was wrong. He placed his hand on the tip of Zhang's mouth and probed it again. He suddenly lifted his eyes and murmured to himself in disbelief. "How did you die? That shot just now didn't hit the nail on the head, why died so decisively?" "Xiao Chen, Zhang's mouth is dead. Keep an eye on his body and don't let anyone get close from now on." He said coldly to his subordinates that this matter is too mysterious. After giving orders to his subordinates, he dispersed the onlookers. "Quickly disperse and don't look, staying any longer will hinder official business." He didn't reveal his identity, but everyone thought he was a police officer. At this moment, the police car also arrived, and as soon as the police got off the car, they cleared out the unrelated personnel. The crowd, who were very eager to gossip, had no choice but to disperse. Ma Chizhou Monk Xiao also turned around to search for Duyi's figure. They seemed to have seen Du coming just now. Shang Xiao swept over from the people on both sides and did not see anyone wearing military uniforms. He took 2 more steps forward and saw Duyi buying cakes in front of a shop selling flour cakes. He shouted to Ma Chizhou on the other side, "Chizhou, Duyi is here." After shouting, he ran towards Duyi. Duyi bought 3 boxes of flour cakes, 1 for herself, and 1 for each of her 2 comrades. "Your." She handed the 2 boxes in her hand to Shang Xiao. She brought another box back to her family to taste. Shang Xiao scratched his head awkwardly and said, "We even said we invited you out to eat." He saw that the shop next door was squeezing pomegranate juice. There was just a commotion, and now there was no one outside the shop. He happened to pick up a leak and bought 3 bottles of pomegranate juice. Ma Chizhou ran over and saw the 2 boxes of flour cakes in Shang Xiao's hand, and immediately understood what was going on. "Duyi, what else do you want to eat? I'll go buy it," he said gently. Du shook his head and said, it's getting late, let's go back. Shang Xiao gave Duyi and Ma Qizhou a bottle of the pomegranate juice he had bought back. Du took the pomegranate juice and walked back. As she passed by the police car, she glanced at the scene. The sturdy man who had just held the little girl hostage was being carried onto a stretcher in the car. And the little girl, in the black luxury car, was held tightly by a woman dressed in luxurious attire with a dull expression in her eyes. The woman's tears kept streaming down her face. She projected a silver needle that could instantly numb the muscular man. But she didn't like the behavior of that burly man. When she shot the needle, she damaged his heart with the needle. With the assistance of the numbing effect, the burly man must have died on the spot. She gave a smile. Solved a social scumbag. This smile fell in the eyes of Ma Qizhou on the right, and he looked a bit confused. Duyi, you look really good when you smile. He said unconsciously. Duyi cautiously pondered this sentence. Did this Ma Qizhou mean anything to her? She searched through her original memory and didn't find any behavior from Ma Qizhou that liked her original body. Without finding any useful memories, she stopped thinking. She has a doll-like relationship with her original body, and she doesn't want to cheat. Chapter 9. Jinshan in Space. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Duyi is good-looking, so naturally he looks even better when he smiles, said Shang Xiao with a simple and honest response in the same words. Shang Xiao speaks simply of praise, without any romantic feelings between men and women. The three of them returned to the train station, and the train only arrived in half an hour. There are already many people standing or sitting on the platform, sharing their purchased food with each other, and there are gift boxes containing specialty products next to them. Duyi found his marching bag, walked to a sparsely populated area, leaned it against the wall, and then sat on the ground leaning against it, resting with his eyes closed. Ma Qizhou, who wanted to come and chat, stopped his steps. He walked back to his original place and sat with a few comrades, chatting and joking with everyone, but his eyes occasionally glanced at Du. Du, who was closing her eyes and recuperating, had already felt someone staring at her, and her senses were still very sensitive. This also surprised her. She thought that with a different body, these advantages would disappear. Half an hour later. Didi. The gathering whistle immediately made the scattered people stand up and tidy up their appearance. As soon as Du opened his eyes, he quickly stood up with his bag on his back and walked towards the queue. Ma Qizhou and others have also packed up and returned to the team. Shang Xiao stood next to Duyi and asked with a smile, is the pomegranate juice from earlier delicious? The pomegranates from Yunnan province are even bigger than my fist, it's really rare. Duyi looked at Captain Zhou in front of the team, feeling uneasy. How could this person feel like an elementary school student with intelligence? Captain Zhou stood in front of the team with his hands behind his back in a majestic presence. Lieutenant Li also stood beside the queue with sharp eyes, and there were two medium-sized wooden crates at his feet. It's the D country armament on that red pickup truck. Report the number. Zhou Ying gave a loud command. The first soldier quickly shook his head and reported, 1. 2. Duyi, who stood in the third place, also counted in the standard posture. 3. 4. Shang Xiao also restrained his expression and lost his usual giggling and laughing demeanor. 80. After counting the number of people, Captain Zhou spoke loudly again, turn back collectively and wait for the bus. 80 people quickly turned back neatly and saw a green tin train slowly approaching on the distant railway tracks. In less than a minute, the train stopped. The first 4 soldiers skillfully opened the train door, and the people behind climbed onto the train in an orderly manner. Military trains do not have boarding aids, so as soldiers, there is no need for such pretentious things. Duigong was just standing in the first row, but when he turned back, he became the last to last row. Captain Zhou walked over and stood behind her, whispering, Duyi, you live alone in the back carriage. Duyi is an unmarried girl, and now it's not wartime, so there are conditions for male and female soldiers to ride separately. If Mr. Du knew that his daughter was sleeping with a group of stinky men, he would definitely have to come over and settle accounts with him. Yes. Duyi saluted in response. In theory, she doesn't mind sleeping with other comrades, as it's not like sleeping on the same bed. However, she is willing to accept such arrangements. Shang Xiao frowned and said, "A single room." Du didn't even give him a glance. Soon it was Duyi's turn to get on the train. Duyi threw her backpack onto the train, placed her hands by the door, and forcefully supported her upper body with her arms. With her waist turned to the right, she sat directly onto the train. "Get in the car in 1 second." The action was completed in one go. Ma Qizhou reached into mid-air and awkwardly withdrew. He bent down to pick up the bag on the ground and handed it to Duyi, who was standing up. "Thank you." Duyi took over with a cold expression. Shang Xiao also got on the car, and he smiled and said, "Duyi, your movements just got on the car were really agile." Brush and brush, I went to rest. After speaking, she walked towards the carriage behind her, ignoring the second cargo yet to be understood. Shang Xiao immediately turned around to find a suitable berth. At this moment, the long carriage was bustling with people, and the soldiers were cheering loudly like a fake. Everyone put their bags on the bed to take a seat and sleep for 2 days. Who doesn't want to sleep in a comfortable spot? This long carriage is made up of 3 connected carriages, which look very long. Inside the carriage are rows of military green iron bunks arranged side by side, giving a feeling of not being able to see the end at a glance. The long carriage leads to the carriages of Captain Zhou and Company Commander Li. Going forward is Duyi's single room. 3 meals will be delivered by train attendants on carts, and all soldiers are not allowed to leave the carriage. Duyi pushed open the door connecting the 2 carriages and saw a 1-meter-wide bed in the narrow carriage behind him, with nothing else. But the key is quietness. This is the last carriage of the train. She locked the door as soon as she entered the carriage. Then she pulled hard and, after confirming that she couldn't open it, she casually placed the bag on the ground. "I just lay on the bed." Du touched the silver plain ring around his neck, and the person disappeared out of thin air in the next second. When he opened his eyes again, Duyi saw the familiar ceiling. She has entered the space. Sitting up from the 2-meter-wide bed, she wandered around the villa. "I want to see if the current space looks like it was handed over to the organization, or if many things have been moved out by the organization." I walked around the villa on the 3rd floor and found that everything was the same as when she handed it over to the organization. On the 1st floor, she pushed open the door of the villa and saw her own outdoor parking lot across from her. 30 limited edition sports cars are still parked there unchanged. She walked out and looked to the right, where 20.6 black houses and 3 white houses were also neatly arranged together. The black house is the arsenal, and the white house is the medicine depot. It's inevitable to get injured when completing tasks, so she placed various medicines in the space and can be considered half a doctor herself. Du walked quickly to the black and white house and opened the door to take a look. More than 10 medicine cabinets are intact and undamaged. There are also many neatly arranged thermal weapons. Thinking of her own gold, she quickly turned around and went to the basement of the villa. The 2 billion she earned was all exchanged for big gold bricks. Gold will appreciate over time, preserving its value compared to foreign currency in other countries. And often, gold can be traded directly. She opened the gray iron door in the basement and walked down the long stairs, gradually lighting up with the sound of her footsteps. Pop! She clapped her hands and the large spotlight in the middle of the basement lit up. The dim basement instantly shone brightly, with various gemstones shining brightly. The most dazzling one was the 3-meter-high and 5-meter-wide Great Golden Mountain in the middle. Under the illumination of the light, the bright yellow golden bricks are coated with a layer of dazzling golden halo that makes people never tire of it. This is what she earned through 13 years of hard work. There are also many golden bricks. Duyi glanced at some antique calligraphy and paintings, as well as jade and gemstones next to Jinshan. These are some good things she did when killing the target mission. Suddenly, she saw a dilapidated large iron box lying diagonally on the ground. This is from the drug dealer leader. She approached and opened it, which was filled with small yellow gold bars. Judging from the size of the box, it weighs at least over 500 pounds. She closed the box and walked out of the basement. It seems that the organization was unable to enter the space ring before receiving it. This conjecture has improved her mood a bit. Those things have already passed, and future life is more important. She walked to the garden on the left side of the villa and saw the golden crocodile sleeping soundly inside. Let's starve you for 2 or 3 days first, and I'll make something delicious for you when I go back. Seeing everything in the space, she immediately came out. The front carriage is full of soldiers, and she is not suitable to stay in the space for too long. Chapter 10. Amazing Beauty. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Duyi just stepped out of space and was about to review today's situation. A knock on the door rang out. Knocking and knocking. The knocking sound fell, followed by Shang Zhao's voice coming from outside the door. Duyi, it's time for dinner. It's time for dinner. Duyi bent down and took out the aluminum lunch box on the side of the marching bag, opened the heavy train door, and the aroma of the dishes penetrated his nose. Shang Zhao stood at the door, holding his lunch box and handed it to him. He happily said, I have meat for lunch today, go and get some rice. Duyi scanned the lunch box, stewed meat with potatoes, fried lotus root slices, and 2 mantou. The food is okay. Okay. She walked forward with a lunch box in her hand, and the long carriage was filled with soldiers gathering together to eat. Eating meat at noon, everyone had a strong smile on their faces. Passing through the narrow passage, Duyi continued on until he saw the green cart delivering food and the soldiers queuing up to fetch food. She naturally walked to the back of the queue and lined up. There are still 5 or 6 people queuing up now, and she is considered the last group of people. Today, Zhang Wei and Ma Qizhou were responsible for cooking. Standing behind the green cart, they skillfully took mantou from 3 stainless steel buckets to the people in line. 3 stainless steel long barrels continuously emitted white mist, invading the air of this carriage along with the aroma of vegetables. Shocked by the strong aroma of the dishes, Du let out 2 growls from his stomach. After being kidnapped by a drug dealer last night, she didn't even have dinner. I killed another wave of drug dealers this morning, which cost me some physical strength. I am indeed hungry. Ma Qizhou saw Duyi queuing up, and the act of serving vegetables accelerated a lot. Her arrival also caught the attention of others. The battalion commander said that because the mission went very smoothly and there were no casualties, he opened a meat dish for the big guy. Celebrate the smooth completion of this mission. The task ended so quickly, all thanks to Duyi. Duyi, come here for dinner later. Lieutenant Li sat on the bed next to the cart, holding a lunch box, and said to Duyi. Across from him was Captain Zhou, who also held a lunch box. The 2 officers were surrounded by many people, and everyone was chatting and laughing while eating together. The chief said that it is difficult for Duyi to refuse directly. She nodded and turned around to hand the lunch box to Ma Qizhou. Ma Qizhou quickly took it over and scooped up a large spoonful of potato stewed meat, which was not enough. He also picked out a few pieces of meat from the long bucket and put them into the lunch box. Then I took a spoonful of lotus root slices and filled all the space in the lunch box. Zhang Wei saw this scene and joked, Ma Qizhou, you don't intend to leave any room for me anymore. He smiled and handed Duyi 2 mantou. People always put mantou in lunch boxes. Duyi has no place to put mantou. Duyi takes the mantou and lunch box and turns right to look for Li Lianchang. Sit here. Before she arrived, Lieutenant Li arranged her position. The other soldiers watched as Du sat down, their eyes fixed on him. Duyi is thin and weak, and usually doesn't like to talk. Although they have been comrades in arms with Duyi in the same army for 4 or 5 years, to be honest, they still don't know much about Duyi's temperament. They only know that her health is not good and her abilities are very poor. The training task was never completed, and all the indicators were at the bottom. After serving in the military for 4 or 5 years, I only became a class monitor, with only 2 or 3 people in a class. If it weren't for Commander Du standing on top, someone like Duyi would probably have been persuaded to retreat by the troops. But this comrade with very poor abilities made a remarkable achievement today, which forced them to re-examine this comrade who they had always looked down upon. Duyi put the lunch box on his knee, took the mantu with him, and ate quickly. Captain Zhou's heart is now very tense. The task was completed quickly, and 2 boxes of various domestically produced firearms were seized. Take these things back to the military and let the personnel of the Military Research Institute study them carefully to see if they can provide some inspiration for transforming weapons. Complete the task without spending a single soldier. This is something that every officer dreams of. If you can get some meat, you have to thank Duyi well. If it weren't for her, we wouldn't be able to return now. Captain Zhou looked at a circle of soldiers and said. He knew that Duyi was at the bottom of the military's ability and had always been looked down upon by his comrades in arms. Even those new recruits didn't take Duyi, a veteran of 4 or 5 years, seriously. He said this also to accumulate some popularity for Duyi. After listening to Captain Zhou's words, the soldiers immediately exchanged warm greetings with Duyi. At this moment, Ma Qizhou walked over with a lunchbox and sat next to Duyi. Yeah, everyone who went out this morning should have seen it. A large number of people died in the drug trafficking dens, and almost all of them were killed by headbutts. In this situation, we can still think of a task and pull the drug trafficking leader out of the pile of dead people and take him to the car. Duyi is a task that belongs to the army no matter when or where. We need to learn from her. His words turned Duyi into a benchmark. Duyi just buried his head in eating and didn't talk. Because she remembers being in the midst of a crowd, she is also a silent figure who doesn't like to speak. There's no need for her to deliberately disguise this. Her personality is also someone who doesn't like to talk. It seems that everyone has also become accustomed to Duyi's behavior, and in a moment of laughter and conversation, they have brought up the topic of the situation in the drug trafficking dens this morning. Shang Xiao was eating with a smile, listening to everyone chatting and occasionally interjecting a few words. He just heard everyone praising Duyi, and surprisingly felt a touch of emotion in his heart. In the past, these people used to speak with their feet on Duyi. Ma Qizhou sat next to Duyi, occasionally taking a glance at her. He said several things just now, but Du didn't even look up. Captain Zhou sat across from Duyi and saw Ma Qizhou's little gaze clearly. Although Duyi is not in good health and ranks last in the army, he comes from a good family background. My father is the mayor, my grandfather was a veteran general before the founding of the People's Republic of China, and my 2 older brothers are also potential successors in the Kyoto military region. Such a family naturally seeks marriage from the Xiao family, who are equally matched. As far as he knew, Marshal Du Laoyuan had already arranged for him to be a child, and his target was Xiao Shuren, the most promising 3rd grandson of Commander Xiao. Unfortunately 6 months ago, Captain Xiao injured his legs while carrying out a mission and was unable to stand on both legs. Now, Commander Xiao is seeking medical attention everywhere. The marriage between the Du and Xiao families is probably going to be complicated. The Du family dotes on Duyi like eyeballs, how could they make her marry a disabled person? He let out a deep sigh in his heart. Captain, platoon leader, I have finished my meal and will go rest first. Du stood up and said. Go ahead. Go ahead. Commander Zhou and Company Commander Li waved at the same time. Duyi turned around and came out of the stall, heading forward to the wash basin to wash the lunchbox. The only bathroom and wash basin in these 3 carriages are located at the left end of the long carriage. There are still a few people queuing up next to the sink to wash dishes. She waited for a while, and when it was her turn, she opened the lunchbox and rinsed it with water first. Then she tilted her body to get the dishwasher from the other end of the sink, and as she reached out, she accidentally glanced at the mirror. Then he froze. The girl in the mirror has exceptionally fair skin and no blemishes on her face. Her slightly upturned phoenix eyes exude a sense of pride. Her brown pupils and small upturned nose are the finishing touch of her facial features, creating a delicate and 3-dimensional contrast to her entire face. Her pink cherry blossom lips are particularly eye-catching. The original appearance is astonishing to heaven and humanity. But the soul of this body was replaced by Duyi. The originally delicate facial features that were so captivating now add a touch of coldness and a feeling of not being close to strangers. There is frost on the outside and a morning star on the inside. The word popped out of Du's mind.